Now I want to talk about interpretation. Now that we have the characterization data across a cohort of patients, we want to find the drivers. So the way we do that, we build a statistical model of the random chance of mutations or the background rate, and then identify genes, regions, or pathways that have more mutations than you'd expect by chance. And this gives us candidate cancer genes, or could highlight artifacts of or inaccuracies in our background model. So I will highlight two methods that we've developed over the years. One is GISTIC and one is MutSlg, or MutSlg is a suite of tools that has different algorithms within it. And then I will also mention other more later developments. So GISTIC, in just brief, looks at copy number variations along the genome. The idea is that different samples have different gains, different cancers have different gains. These are red stripes here, and every cancer is a column here. These are different red stripes. And these are different grades in this cartoon. And you could look across all of the samples and essentially add up those different gains. And then ask, are there regions of the genome that have more gains in this particular region than you'd expect by chance? And how do you build the model of the chance? You essentially permute these gains in every sample independently, because if there were passenger events, they could have occurred everywhere with the same probability. And so we could permute them and then generate a distribution by chance. And then convert this score, which we call the G-score, which is the sum of these amplitudes, to a p-value for every region of the genome. Then we need to correct for multiple hypotheses using kind of FDR. And those that pass this FDR threshold, we call them significant. And this is the basis of GISTIC. We now in GISTIC 2.0 distinguish between broad level gains and focal gains, or kind of arm level gains and focal gains, because they have different statistics of being generated. And that's kind of, and we have also additional dealing with peaks that are next by to each other, etc. And this is this method called GISTIC 2.0, still used by many people until today. And I go deeper into MutSlg. So MutSlg is a similar approach. You look at different patients, and these are different genes, and here are mutations. And the simplest concept of MutSlg is just count every gene, how many mutations you saw in that gene. And then you need to compare to how many you'd expect by chance. So how do you know how you expect by chance? You could, for example, permute all these mutations along the genome randomly, and then see what is chance. Of course, longer genes would likely have more mutations than shorter genes. So for example, here are two genes. One is much shorter than this one. Therefore, the significance of these two mutations is much higher than this one. Here's one that has 3 mutations, so its total significance is higher. Then we could calculate p-values and correct for multiple hypotheses. We've already seen that different bases have different mutation rates depending on the signature, CpG2T, and there's this ApoBic and UV signature, etc. So we need to take the rate of different signatures into account. So we did that. We developed MutSlg, and here's again a kind of a cartoon example of basically imagine that you have this estimate of the background mutation rate mu, the number of mutations you'd expect to have in a gene that is size 1,500 bases across 500 tumors. Total territory will be 750,000 bases. If you assume the background mutation rate is roughly 1.5 mutations per megabase, you'd expect roughly 1 mutation on average in such a gene across the cohort of 500 patients. But if the patient is really driven by this gene, and 5% of patients have a driver there, or even 2% of patients have a driver there, then 10 patients will have a mutation. And now you can compare 10 patients with mutation compared to 1. Is it significantly different or not? And then you could calculate a p-value for every gene again, and then correct for multiple hypotheses and to generate these Q values. And if the Q value is less than 0.1, we call it a candidate cancer gene. And this method is essentially described in our paper from 2007. And we apply these tools, this MutSlg, across cancer. And typically we found these cancer genes in different cancer types, more frequent and less frequent cancer genes. And what was clearly observed by them that only a few genes are mutated more than 20% of the cases. And there's a long tail of cases that are mutated in lower and lower frequencies. But then we hit a problem. The problem was when we looked at lung cancer, roughly nearly 200 lung cancers, and running the same algorithm, we found 450 potential candidate cancer genes. And what struck us very odd is that 100 of them were olfactory receptors that are related to smelling in the nose. And many of them were very long genes in the genome, either in terms of amino acid or territory in the genome, including the CSMD1, which is, or CSMD3, which was one of the genes we thought was significant in ovarian cancer. So we didn't know what's going on. Why is the method not working? And the reason is that our method didn't take into account the fact that mutations are heterogeneous rates along the genome. If you have, we are using one estimate for a background mutation rate. And if there are regions that have a higher background rate than this estimate, then we'll have false positives there. If there are regions that have a lower background rate, then we'll have false negatives there. So we already seen that there's different frequency of mutations across different patients and across different tumor types. But also within a patient, there are differences in mutation rates in different genes. The higher the gene is expressed, the lower the mutation rate. And the reason is that there's a repair mechanism called transcription-coupled repair that repairs DNA damage in DNA as genes are being transcribed. So the higher the expression, the more chance there is to repair the damage. And therefore, you have less mutation rate. There's also another striking observation that the mutation rate is higher at late replicating parts of the genome. The genomes are mutated, are not replicated from one end to the other. There are origins of replications, and there are some regions of the genome that is replicated early and some that are late. The later ones have more mutations than the early ones. Not really understand what's the reason, but it could be that they just didn't have enough time to repair. It could be that there's a depletion of nucleotides, and therefore there's more chance of misincorporating wrong nucleotides, and there are other hypotheses. CSMD3, one of our fishy genes, was indeed in a very rate replicating part of the genome. So instead of estimating a flat mutation rate, we had to estimate this kind of rugged mutation rate throughout the genome. And when we did that, we developed MutSlg CV, which after we did that, instead of 450 genes, gave us 11 genes were not the genes with new one, the HLA-A. So I'll stop here to take more questions.